What an intro that was. That was a lot.
You
That
like
was a
it?
lot.
Yeah, my husband made the music, which I'm very impressed because I can't do anything like that. And then
Neither
that
can I.
clip, do
That's
you know what
good.
that clip is from? Does he recognize the style? It's Betty Boop.
Is it?
Yeah, so almost all the Betty Boop cartoons are in the public domain, so you can use
You
them.
can use them now.
Yeah, and that
What is it?
one,
After 100 years or something, it's free territory, right? Or whatever it
yeah,
is.
I'm not sure what happened with that one, but yeah, there's some kind of dispute over the rights, so it's public domain. And that
Mm.
clip is it's from an episode of Betty Boop where that character, I think his name is Bimbo, he gets like sucked into a cult.
Sounds
So I was
about
like,
right. That sounds
yeah,
about right. That
appropriate,
sounds about
right?
right. Yeah, that is appropriate.
So, welcome. If it's your first time here, you're watching Deprogrammed with Keri Smith. This is a new channel, so if you found it some other way, please hit subscribe. I am very excited for our guest tonight, who Arielle Scarcella. I realize I pronounce your name
That's
wrong
okay.
every time.
Everyone
Arielle
pronounces it wrong.
Scarcella.
That's fine.
And you and I, we've got to meet a couple times, but
Mm-hmm.
we've never had a conversation about your story about leaving the left. And so I'm just so grateful that you agreed to be here and tell me a little bit more about you.
I think it's an interesting story.
For anybody who's not familiar with you,
Interesting enough that most people want me to talk about it, I guess, right?
yes, yes. So where can people find you, first of all? And then,
It's youtube.com/Arielle with two E's and two L's. Arielle.
okay.
Yeah, I have a vanity URL because I was one of the like first lesbian YouTubers. So I was like, "Can I have this URL?" And they're like, "Sure."
How long ago was that? When did you start
Well, I
YouTubing?
had a I started posting in 2009,
Oh,
like
wow.
OG YouTube. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So, and then you had this awakening where you sort of reckoned with some things being on the left. Can you tell me about how that started? So you were already doing YouTube when that started for you.
Yeah. Well, like, listen, in the old YouTube days, right? The left meant not being a part of people that didn't believe in LGBT or mental illness, right? Meant they didn't think that, at least in my experience, right? People on the far right were usually more conservative Christians, people that thought that being gay was a choice or that it was sinful. They didn't believe in mental health issues. So I also like grew up in New York City, right? So I was conditioned, I guess, to be a Democrat, or to at least believe that that was the way I was supposed to be. And to be honest, most of the Democrat leaders we had in New York, for the most part, weren't terrible up until the last 5 years. They were decent. Rudy Giuliani was a really good mayor. He was a Republican. But besides that, the other Democratic mayors that we had weren't bad like they are today.
Did you think
And
Giuliani was a good mayor at
I
the
loved
time?
him. I thought he was a great mayor. Yeah, and I was old enough to know and to remember him because he was our mayor during 9/11. And I was 15, 16 years old. So it was a extremely tough time, and I think he handled it as well as he could have. But yeah, I've been posting, I guess, anti woke stuff, anti woke content for the past maybe 2 3 years, I guess
Yeah.
ish. I don't know. You want to call it that? I think for me it was an interesting journey because, and there's some people out there that have the same experience. I would say very few though that come out as gay and are like on the just associated with the left, or make friends that are on the left, make friends with people that are on the left or just not on the right, and you're automatically stuck in that situation because once you don't agree with something that they are preaching, if you go against the mob, and this is even back 4 5 5 6 years ago before the whole Trump thing, it had nothing to do with Trump, in my opinion. I think once you go against the mob, you never, basically you were taught to never do that, right?
Yeah.
If 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 you did, you would lose sponsorship, you would lose sponsorships, you would lose brand deals, you would lose friends. I lost my management company. These are all things that I knew would potentially go away if I came out and stood by my morals. Which, it's funny because people say, "Oh, Arielle, you're a grifter, you've changed," and it's like, actually, have I though? I've always been for the same things, you
Hmm.
know, freedom, liberty, let me live my life, sex education, um, science, logic, right? I've
Right.
always talked about these things, and it just so happens that, as Dave Rubin likes to say, the left left him.
Yeah.
The left kept moving further and further away from me, and I just kind of stood where I was, and I said, I guess I'm no longer there, and I don't know where I belong. And then people on the right accepted me, and I said, okay, I'll scoot over there for a little bit and see what that's like. And that's where
Yeah.
I'm at now.
So did you think of yourself before this started happening, before you started having this, let's just call it an awakening, unless you have a better word.
Yeah.
Did you think of yourself as a liberal, and do you still think of yourself as a liberal, or does it matter to you?
I think by the actual technical definition, I am a liberal, not a leftist, because
Yeah.
that's like, I feel like that's another situation. And even I like mix those words up sometimes and use them interchangeably when I shouldn't. I definitely think I'm a classic liberal. It's like, don't tell me what to do, don't tell me how to live my life, as long as there's nothing morally wrong with it, as long as it's consenting adults. Let me take classes that I want to in school. Let me make my own money. Don't take too much money from me, and that's it. Let me live and let
Mhm.
live. Like that's like, which is interesting because the left, which used to be all for that, is kind of the opposite. It's like somewhere down the line, it switched,
Yeah.
and I'm not exactly sure where that happened. My guess is somewhere between gay marriage and 2015. That's
Hmm.
when I started seeing things kind of shift. On
And what
YouTube
did
specifically, I would say like 2015.
and is that what started to, because I had my own experience with waking up. I was in the social justice left for about 20 years. I was a really
Yeah.
passionate, true believer. What was it for you? People always ask me, what was it? And in my case, it wasn't one particular thing. It was sort of an evolution of things I was noticing. What did you
Right.
start to notice? What was it for you?
It was a bunch of things. I think the main thing was that it became very it felt very familiar and in a bad way. It felt like I was in a relationship with ex-girlfriends that I was in, like that I had been with before. I know that sounds weird, people aren't gonna understand it, but whatever. It's my truth, okay? I was in abusive relationships in the past.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time, a lot of therapy, all these things, a lot of self-reflection to understand what these relationships looked like, what abuse looked like. And if you go piece by piece, like I made a video and there's a chart in the video and it says, these are traits of abusive relationships, right? And it's talking about mental, emotional abuse, not physical abuse. Physical abuse is pretty obvious, right? You get hit, it's
Yeah.
physical abuse. Um, and it's like a pie chart. It has like 15, 16 different things. And every single thing that was about this whole chart was about romantic relationships. Every single thing could also be like a piece of that could be taken out and and fed to people on the far left, and they would love it because that's exactly what it is.
Like
Things
some of
like
those things,
no, no, go ahead,
yeah.
go ahead.
Well, like controlling who you associate
Yeah,
with, is that one?
yeah, yep. Controlling who you associate with, controlling your finances, making sure um, you speak their own language. The goalposts keep shifting was another one. What's okay to say today isn't okay to say tomorrow. That's all abusive tactics that people in in manipulative relationships will use. Like it's insane how accurate this is. I think it was 16 pieces, and I think 14 of 16 of them were things that I
Wow.
had experienced. Not that the other two aren't experienced by other people, but 14 of them I had experienced from people on the far left.
That's
And
amazing.
I've never experienced it with anybody on the right or in the middle at the moment. These are only, and that doesn't mean that it can't happen, but this is just my experience. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. So in my case, I didn't go down a list of abuse tactics, although I've since looked at some of those, but I looked at cult characteristics and the social
I have a
justice.
video coming out
Yeah.
about that too. Yep.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing? There's
Yep.
there's the big one that it doesn't meet. Like there's not like one charismatic leader. And so I think that stops people from thinking about it as a cult
I don't think
sometimes.
there's a charismatic leader. The I think that the things that they try to push, the ideas that
Mhm.
they try to push, it is the charismatic leader.
Mm.
Because if that makes sense, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's like these lessons that they're preaching is their way of telling us this is the type of person you need to be.
Hmm.
Does that make? I don't know if I'm making
No, it
sense.
does. It's the
You know what I'm
ideology
saying?
itself
Like
is like leading a school of fish.
right. It's like this is like it's not a person. It's a bunch of ideas, and you have to keep following those ideas.
Yeah. So when you started having this reckoning, what was that time period like for you? And then how did you like let people know that your ideas were shifting, or did you let them know explicitly, or did the nature of what you were doing on YouTube just sort of start changing slowly?
See, I don't think my ideas ever changed. I
Mm.
really don't. I think some of them evolved based on like new knowledge. Like I used to think that I thought, it was fair for trans women to be able to play in female sports, and in some cases, I still think that it is. It's just very rare. I mean, in my opinion, the trans woman would have to not have gone through male puberty, basically, which is rare, right? Especially if you're against children transitioning, and a lot of places are. I think when I started noticing the pushback, though, because the same things that I would have said 5, 6 years ago, when I started saying them 3, 4 years ago, whatever it was, like things that I was saying in 2014, I was saying the same things in 2016. All of a sudden, it wasn't okay. So it wasn't that my ideas changed; it's that the people that were listening to those ideas thought that those ideas were now bad for some
Yeah.
reason, morally incorrect, whatever. One of the things, of course, like big on the transgender debate, obviously, um, big on the word woman and sex based rights. Right, that's a major thing I consistently talk about. But I would say a lot of it a lot of it now has to just do with lying and
Mm.
the hypocrisy coming out of the politicians on the far left. Not that Republicans don't lie, but in my experience, they're lying a lot less
Yeah.
than Democrat progressive candidates and leaders. And I think I started noticing that when I was hanging out with one of my friends. He's a Jewish guy, not like super Hasidic, but Jewish enough. And I remember, and I say, and it means it's important to note that, because I think at least in New York City, I feel like most Jewish people did vote for Trump and do vote conservative, right? But he's like a pretty typical libertarian who
Hmm.
voted for Trump. And I remember a few years ago, this was back in like 2018, like middle of Trump's presidency. He came to me and he's like, "So what do you think about Trump so far?" Blah blah blah. And I was like, "Ugh, whatever." I rolled my eyes, and he's like, "Well, what don't you like about him?" And I stood there and I was like, "Oh, wait a second. Like, I don't like him, but I don't know why I don't like him. Like, that's a red flag. Like, where
Oh.
the hell am I learning this from? Why? Like, how was I being indoctrinated?" I couldn't answer. And that
Yeah.
was a red flag for me. And I was like, okay, let me take a step back and actually figure this out. Like, where did I learn this from? Where did I learn that I had to be a Democrat just because I was gay? Where did I learn that I had to hate Trump just because I was gay, even though I saw pictures of him holding up the rainbow flag, even though he did nothing in his presidency to hurt LGBT people? Where am I learning this from?
Do you,
Media. That's the
do you
only place
think
I
it
could have.
was do you think it was important that the person who asked you that was a friend who you loved and respected?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Because if it was just some random person from the street or I think some people, I know where you're going with this. I think some people, they would need a family or friend to tell them, but I also think it's important when people like us speak out, because to these kids or to these
Mhm.
people that are watching us, I think they do see us as a friend, because at least bottom line, I think they at least see us as I feel like they're less skeptical of people like us,
Mm.
because we see more, and I think for the most part we are more genuine,
Mhm.
and we don't have an agenda. We're just like people online saying what we got to say, type of
Yeah.
thing, right?
Did you
Especially, yeah.
did you experience any fallout with real life like friendships and relationships? I know you said you lost your manager.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I lost. Well, I was actually, believe it. Do you know the Twitter account and the Instagram account? Them.
No, I don't
It's
know.
actually called Them.
Okay.
I know, and it's exactly what it sounds like. I was actually,
Is that a
yeah.
non-binary?
It's just like a queer thing, and
Okay.
they were doing this influencer program, and they had like 15 of us on board, and I was one of them, and then they just like never emailed me again, and they were doing like big brand deals and stuff. So I definitely lost a ton of money not doing that, by opening my mouth.
You're such a bad
And
grifter.
I know. What are you gonna do? Yeah, it's the funny thing is the real grift is staying on the left, right? Even though if
Yeah.
you don't believe in it, right?
Right.
I mean, if you believe in half the shit that they say at this point, I guess good luck. But if you don't, then that's kind of even worse, because then that's the actual grift. Um,
Yeah, I was going to say that that word, I see it getting flung around a lot, and It truly just means con man. It's somebody who's making money speaking things they don't believe or selling snake oil or something, you know?
You mean
So
like
it's
Joe
like,
Biden? Oh, yeah.
if you don't believe the words coming out of your mouth,
AOC,
yeah, but
AOC.
you're getting paid to do it.
Socialism. She makes like $100,000 a year, whatever it is.
Yeah. And there are people that do
Yes.
that in every belief system, like woke, Christianity, anti woke, you
Of
know.
course,
I'm
of
sure
course.
there are Muslim grifters. I don't know.
Because yeah, when somebody there's an opportunity to make money, if somebody's gonna lie about something. That's just how it is.
Yeah. But so you lost some friendships and you forged ahead, and then you now where are you at? I'm the same as you. If people ask me if they force me to put a label on myself, I'm like, I guess I'm classically liberal, and
Yeah, yeah.
I feel the same way. The left kind of changed. I didn't realize. In my case, it was the left moved away from me, but also I did move a little once I opened my eyes and started looking at things and trying to
In
figure out.
politics, yes, but not in culture.
Right.
In culture, I feel like I've stayed the same.
Yes.
Like
Yeah,
I'm still
that's
sex
similar.
positive. I still believe in, sex education and
Hmm.
that kind of stuff. And I OnlyFans or whatever the hell, like all that stuff. I'm still completely for. I still hang out with porn stars. Like it's
Hmm.
fine. Um, and I'm still obviously for actual LGBT rights that make sense.
Hmm.
And the politics side of it, the left kept moving further and further away from us.
Hmm.
Hey, Mikey, Mikey's in here. Mikey Harlow,
Oh, hi, Mike.
and Sarah's in
Uh,
here too. Well, she was, but
Hello.
yeah.
I'm not really great at paying attention to the chat, guys. I'm
I have it
sorry.
open.
Hello,
I'll mute you
everyone.
guys.
Hi,
Yeah, I'm muting it.
Therese. Um, so you did suffer like some consequences of doing this, but what made you continue just saying what you believe to be true? What is it about you? This is a question I like to ask people because I have seen people, and I'm sure you get messages from people like this who have this moment of awakening. They wake up, but then they stay silent. And I'll get messages sometimes from people who are like, I really like your posts or I like your videos, but I'm too afraid to hit like.
Yeah,
Is there something in a person's character or personality development, or maybe their past or their experience with something that helps them to move past that fear of saying something?
I don't know how to answer that, but I'm gonna say this. I think it comes. Hey, Sarah. Hey, Mel. I think it comes down to your character. Honestly, like I know that sounds like a cop out answer,
Hmm.
but you have to get some balls. Like how many times are you gonna let people be bullies in your life? How many times are you gonna allow yourself to be bullied?
Hmm.
It happened to me when I was very young, when I was in like the 5th grade. High school was great, junior high school was great. Then it didn't happen to me again until I started making content, until I started making and saying things that people disagreed with. And I use the word I'll use the word bullied lightly here. I don't think it's bullying if people are just like leaving comments, but when you're making full-fledged videos that are lies,
Hmm.
right? Or taking things out of context, to me that's kind of a form of bullying because people will just take it at face value and just believe anything they say, which is how they got people to vote for Biden, right?
Hmm.
My advice to those types of people would be grow a pair of balls, honestly. Like
Yeah.
honestly, I think that it's a very it's a very teachable moment and it's a big moment for learning in like the spiritual world when you change paths in that way.
Hmm.
Well, you're not really changing paths. You're kind of just like making sure you're on the right path. You're like, this path doesn't seem right. Let me continue on this one. And once you do that, just like anything else, right? Like they even tell you in therapy, when you when you're healing in therapy, other people around you are kind of going to get uneasy
Hmm.
because they don't feel like they don't want to feel like they're the problem,
Yes.
right? So
Same when you
when
get
you're
sober.
healing, right? Same thing when you get sober. Okay, so when the same thing with politics or culture, or whatever. Like when things aren't making sense to you anymore, and you start coming away from things and going and taking a step back, people want to grab you even further, grab you even harder because like it's not me that's wrong, you're the wrong one, and they try to grab you and hold on and control you more until you finally say like, no, I'm done.
Hmm.
Once I said I was done, I don't get hit pieces written about me anymore. It's kind of bizarre. I mean, once in a while, but like Pink
Yeah.
News used to, oh my God, every 5 minutes, like
They
somebody's
hated
got
you at
stuff.
first.
Horrible. Horrible.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Arielle, this is my first super chat on this new
That's your
channel.
first shot. Yeah.
Yes. Oh
Oh,
my gosh. Wait, you guys, I didn't know it was turned on yet. Look at this. G-Man, wow.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. He says, wait, you're monetized now. Yes, I guess I am. Congrats, and let me be the first to support your new venture. Here's new beginnings.
Oh, that's
Thank you,
sweet.
sir. It's a momentous day. Tomorrow, Arielle will be demonetized, so enjoy it while it lasts. Have you, so have you heard from, I get the impression from the style of videos you do a lot of response videos to woke people that are pretty
Now I do.
funny.
Now I
Yeah.
do.
Do you have a lot of young people who are following you? And if so, like, do you get a sense for, because I always have people asking me about Generation Z, and there are some studies that say they look like they might be leaning more conservative, like more libertarian minded.
I
What
agree
do
with
you
that.
get the
I agree
sense?
with
You
that. I
do?
think that's true. I think that's very true. I think that I did it. I did an interview yesterday with my friend Darren, who's in the UK, and he's I think he's gay. Pretty sure he's gay. He leans more conservative, even though he's in the UK. It's like even more liberal than here in some ways. And we were talking about that exact thing. I'm trying to remember what he said.
About young people?
What'd you say?
About young people?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what he said. I think he said, I think he's like, when you realize you're an old gay or something like that. And I'm like, I'm not an old gay. I'm not old gay. I'm older. But like, it's interesting how he even saw that, right? And he's a few years younger than I am, but I'm 35. A lot of people don't know that. Whatever, I'll say it in this stream. But I'm 35. He's 28, I think. And even the difference between people my age and his age is kind of like millennial to Gen Z.
Hmm.
And then the new people, whatever that would be considered. I don't know what it comes after Gen Z, the younger crowd, like 18 to 13,
Wow.
would
Okay.
agree with you and say those kids are more conservative leaning. And I think it's also because I think it's partially because, how do I say this? There weren't any mainstream quotes conservative or moderate voices that were big on social media up until very recently. So now those kids have that have an opportunity to watch people that have different views.
Hmm.
Whereas before, you would have to like search for a while to find somebody. And if you did, they would be anonymous, right? So you're like, well,
Yes.
how am I going to relate to somebody if they're anonymous? So kids didn't have that opportunity to look, you know, that makes sense, right? To look different ways.
Yeah.
It was only the woke people with these big TikTok accounts and YouTube channels and all these things.
Hmm.
Now we have the Hodge twins, we have Brokeback Patriot, we have all these Blair
Gothics.
White, right? These different all these different voices that matter and that are making sense. And I think it's interesting because I think kids can tell when somebody is being real
Yes.
more than an adult can. And
Yeah.
I think that these crazy leftists, whatever we want to call them, the woke people, I think that in the beginning, I think they did mean well. And I think they got carried away because I was friends with some of these people. And I'll never talk too much trash about them because I still think that they, for the most part, mean well, but I think they're too afraid to speak out against anything.
Hmm.
I don't think half of them believe in what they preach anymore. I really don't. And
But
that's a shame.
have you heard of the sunken cost idea where it's like
No,
you've invested so much cost into something like a relationship or a job or an ideology, belief
right.
system, and then you've put so much into it, or let's say a house that you're fixing up that you
Right.
put a lot in, and you get to a certain point where maybe you're starting to question if this has been a wise investment, but you've already put so much in, you're
I
like,
agree.
I can't get out.
Yeah, yeah.
You think a lot of
I
those
I think a lot
people,
of them I think a lot of them probably I think a lot of them know that and they handle it by just not saying anything.
mhm,
And we know because we see these messages come in every day, and with people agreeing with us that are afraid to speak out. But meanwhile, if just three or four more people on our side spoke out, or even on the other side spoke out about some of their own side's crazy ideas,
mhm,
more and more people would be open to talking about this stuff.
mhm.
It takes a few bigger voices to make everyone else feel comfortable.
Have you, in your life, have you had in the past couple of years an experience with help, like red pilling someone or deprogramming someone? Do you think it's possible to do that?
I do. I don't think it's. I think for some people, they are actually brainwashed. I really do. I think for other people, like I don't think I was brainwashed because I was kind of always fighting with people on the far left. If you really look back at my videos, I was always fighting with them. Up maybe around 4 years before I even came out as like a conservative Trump or whatever. Um, so I was like red pilled before I knew I was red pilled a little bit. Wait, what was the question again? Oh, have I red
Have
pilled people?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's a really interesting. It's people think that like walking around at pride parades or going out in public and being recognized is interesting. It is, but what's more interesting is when, because like at first, right, they're like, "Oh, I love your videos," blah blah blah. That was like 10 years ago. Now, when people recognize me, it's more like an in passing because they're afraid. Blair White gets the same thing. They're almost afraid to admit that they watch our channel.
Oh.
They agree with it. No,
Mm.
seriously.
Yeah.
Like I've had people come up to me at Rhode Island Pride, at New York Pride, very sneaky, and be like, "Love your content," and then just keep walking, and I'm like, "What the fuck? Like, what is that?" Like, or like, just so you know, I love your videos, and I agree with what you say, and I'm afraid I can't say anything, but whatever. And then they'll just
It's
like
like
walk.
it's a kind
Yeah,
of closeting. They're
it
closeted.
is.
In a,
They recloseted themselves, and it's sad
yeah.
because I don't think that most of the things these people are saying make sense.
Yeah. For the people that you have gotten, I wouldn't say gotten through to, but people that you know who've changed their views or opened their mind. Maybe they thought they were open-minded and they weren't. How is it? Sometimes people ask me, maybe they ask you, like, how do you talk to a loved one? Like, if you have a friend or family member who's gotten super woke in the past few years, and I think we all know people that went the other direction than us.
Hmm.
How do you keep that connection open, and how do you bridge that gap with someone?
Oh man, I think that I think that pushing anyone to to see your views does the opposite. I think instead you need to just keep posting what you believe in, and when they are ready to learn and hear it, they'll learn and hear it.
Hmm.
If that makes sense, because it's going to sound like a weird comparison, but it's almost like when your friend sends you a good song and they're like, listen to this, and you never listen to it. It's just like, oh, you're annoying me, sending me like playlists every 5 seconds is annoying, right? But then when you come to that new song by yourself, you're like, oh my god, I love this song. I know that sounds like a weird comparison, but it's almost like
No,
you discover this on your own time.
yeah, it's like you
Maybe
plant
it's
the
just me that gets
seed.
annoyed when friends send me songs. They listen to the
Yeah.
song, like, yeah.
But then if when you listen to that song later on your own, and then you
Yeah,
sometimes remember like, oh, I've got to thank Arielle. She's the one that sent me that a long time ago, and I
yeah,
wasn't. Yeah,
yeah, but
and
like
I
I
didn't
have to
listen.
find it on my own. It's like a weird thing. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's a weird human thing, I think.
I had to come to that on my own. I don't think. And thank you for answering that. I'm always curious if what things people have tried to talk to those who don't want to have conversations maybe anymore. And in my case, it's not facts. You can't give them facts. Maybe like
No,
your
because
friend
they're not,
did.
their brain isn't based in facts.
Yeah.
Their brain is based on feeling. And you
Hmm.
can't communicate with somebody that isn't talking sense.
Hmm.
Which is why I'm saying in my opinion, you're wasting your time by speaking directly to them. Instead,
Hmm.
just keep speaking the truth, speak facts, speak science, speak morality, preach love, and eventually, if they come to understanding it or if they're ready to hear it, they will. If
Hmm.
not, then other people who are ready are going to find it.
Yeah. Where do you think things are headed now culturally? And this might maybe piggyback on that question about young people.
Yeah, I
I
get this question asked a lot.
yeah, I know people get asked all the time, are you white pilled? Are you black pilled? Or blah, blah, blah. There's all these different colors now. Where do you think we're headed?
Um, it was such a dramatic sigh, right?
I,
I just, I don't even, I just can't breathe. Um, I think that I don't know politically necessarily where we're headed. I think we are starting to see a shift more towards the middle and to the right because it went so far to the left, people are over it. Um, what I do think though is we are seeing a shift in people starting to stand up for what they believe in more because like the more it's like a snowball effect, right? The more people that speak out against the crazy stuff, the more people that will, and it just gets bigger and bigger. So I think that's the shift we're starting to see now. Beforehand, um, what was it? The Hodge, like a good example is, I know it said it before, the Hodge twins. Now they're going by the conservative twins. I mean, they
Oh.
still go by the Hodge twins,
Mm-hmm.
but they're promoting themselves as the conservative twins. And just a lot of people, like we have Christian Walker, who's a gay black guy,
Oh yeah.
speaks out against this crazy stuff, you know? And the more people like him, you know, people like those channels inspired me,
Mm-hmm.
right? Before I was like, because I was never an echo chamber person. I followed people, like I followed Blair White for like 5-6 years now. We've been friends, and I've only been out like as a Republican or whatever you want to call it for 2 years. So I've never not followed people on the other side. And I think watching them and hearing their experiences and their opinions definitely helped me see the other side of things. And I was like, then I can make my decision better, right? And then I had two choices, like what makes more sense to me, this or this? Not that it's red or white, or red or blue rather, or black or white, but because I usually wind up somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Like generally, for the most part, can see both sides of every argument. Not every argument, but most of them.
Yeah.
But I'm still gonna side with one or the other usually. But I think people like that were desperately needed a few years back.
Yeah.
And I think that as soon as they came into the picture, things started to change.
Are you still friends with any leftists? Not liberals, but actual leftists.
Leftists, define friend.
On speaking terms?
I'll say, honestly, maybe like two, maybe,
Yeah. Yeah.
out of like 50 or 60 people.
Wow.
Yeah. And the sad thing is, we have people, you know, one of my ex friends or an acquaintance, or whatever you want to call them. I hate bringing up the trans thing. I know I talk about it an awful lot, but it's not about being
That's right.
trans. It's about defining woman. That's really what it comes down to. It's not about trans people. It's about how the trans rights or trans activists, who usually aren't even trans themselves, co-opted the word woman.
Mm-hmm.
That's the issue that I have, and that's why I talk about trans stuff an awful lot. I lost my train of thought. Give me a second.
You said you're still friends
What did I
with
say?
two.
What did I say?
With two people, maybe out of
Oh yeah, I was
50.
friends with two people. I can't remember where I was going with that though. It'll come back. It'll come back. I
That's okay.
promise.
Was it your stance on like the trans issue or how
Oh, I
woman
remember.
is defined?
Okay, I was friends with this one woman who, you'll notice that when people don't believe in something necessarily that the left believes in, but they don't want to outright say it, they'll speak in broad strokes. And this is something I've noticed. So, for instance, I had a friend that was a very popular lesbian influencer, we'll say. And somebody asked her, "Would you date a trans woman?" And she said, "Of course, trans women are women." To me, that's a very broad stroke, because I know her, and I know she would not suck a dick. She would not suck a dick. Like, I'm sorry to say it that way, but like, why didn't she say those words,
Yeah.
right? When she should be able to speak about her sexuality just like anybody else. Because I know plenty of trans women that also wouldn't suck a dick,
Mm-hmm.
right? They like women with vaginas. That's great. So why can trans women say that, but cis women or like biological women can't? Like, I'm not crazy about the double standards here.
Yeah.
So it just drives me nuts that most of these people that you would assume believe in what the majority of the left is saying don't. But you
Yeah.
wouldn't know that because they just kind of throw out blanket statements
Yeah.
just to not get involved.
Have you read the we reread for book club the A Brave New World recently? Well, it's probably been a year now. And reading it now as compared to when I was a kid, it makes so much more sense now, and you can see all this stuff unfolding. There's one part in the book where it's basically this futuristic dystopia, right? Everybody belongs to everybody. This is one of the things they sell in the future. So they say your body, if somebody wants it, you have to give it to them. And I've started to see that in the trans part of social justice, the
Yeah.
trans activist part, where there's sort of, if you do not want to date me or have sex with me, you're a bigot. So you
Right.
have to be open to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think it's more misogyny than anything, because it's very rare that you see that happening to males, to people that are men. You only see it happening to lesbians usually. Oop, again, went away. Sorry, I had to sneeze. It's very like you'll see it a little bit with gay guys, like
Mhm.
trans men being like, I'm gay and whatever, that's fine. Say that you're gay. But pushing themselves on gay men is it's so much more
Mhm.
rare than a trans woman pushing themselves or a supposed trans woman pushing themselves on lesbians. Because I think most of these people that are claiming to be trans women are not. I think they're just simply cross dressers.
Mhm.
It's very rare for a female person, somebody that's female, to be into cross dressing as a kink. It's much more common for people that are born male to be
Mhm.
into that sort of thing,
Yeah,
and then claim that they're trans and then be annoying about it. That makes sense.
it does. Have you, when you were younger, what's going on right now with the trans kid stuff, which a lot of that I think is trans trending, where you've got these soccer mom kind of people who
Oh, absolutely.
it's cool to have a young trans kid, and they're kind of pushing it not just in the schools but at home. With some of the moms. Um, when you were younger, did you ever? You're a little bit younger than me. Did you ever encounter any of this ideology when you were in school? And
None of it.
none of
None
it.
of it. Nope. There was none of this bullshit. I I graduated high school in 2004 and I graduated college in 2008. In high school there was like maybe 3 girls that were out as lesbian. Everyone was out as bisexual. All the girls were bisexual though. Right. Rolling my eyes. There was like one actual bisexual girl. So that was more what it was back then. It was
Yes.
like, oh, everyone's bi because they like kissing girls for guys' attention. But like it was actually a thing. People actually did that. We joke about that now because it was so dumb, but that was actually what people did when I was
Oh
in high
yeah.
school.
Oh well,
Yeah.
that's when I was in. You were in high school when I was in college, and that was the thing. I knew
That's
several.
literally
Yeah.
yes. That's literally people did. Now, while I was in college, there was a few gay people. You would think in art college everybody was gay, but it's for some reason not like that. I guess if you're in fashion design, then all the gays are there. But just in general, art school, most people are straight like anything else. At least in my school. But there was one trans woman, and I didn't know she was trans, but I'm assuming that she was trans.
Mhm.
Yes, Sarah made a great point. Goth is now the non-binary pipeline. It's true. It went from like I don't think, yeah, I don't think there was, I don't think there's, I don't think that the path went from gothic to non-binary. I mean, rather, sorry, bisexual people claiming that they're bisexual to non-binary. I think it went from people that were gothic now are identifying as that would have been gothic back then,
Or emo.
are now or emo, right? Or scene are now those non-binary kids or queer. Meanwhile, again, you wouldn't like a vagina. Stop calling yourself a queer. Stop doing it. You
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
Well,
If
it's
you're not
related.
attracted to women and you're a woman, stop calling yourself queer.
Yeah, but it's related to what that trend that you're talking about when you were in high school, when I was in college, where you would have straight women claiming to be bi,
Yep. This
and
is the new version of that, in my
it
opinion.
is because it's sort
100%.
of this
It's
trendy
clear as
thing.
day.
Yeah, trendy thing to do. You get sort of social status points with it. I worked with some
Mhm.
comedians when I was in my old life, when I was in entertainment, who very publicly claimed to be bi. And behind the scenes, it's like, come on, like you never date women. What are you talking about? It's all
I can't
straight
stand
guys.
that. I
Yeah,
cannot stand it. Oh, it drives me
yeah,
nuts.
yeah.
I It especially drives me nuts because I feel for actual bisexual people.
Hmm.
First of all, it's annoying because they're co-opting our language and our lived experiences. But I also feel bad for bisexual people because they're making them look stupid.
Hmm.
Actual bisexual people.
Do you think, if you think back to when you were in high school, I know you didn't encounter this then, but do you think that you might have been susceptible to it? Someone that kind of got pulled into this?
No, but not the non-binary stuff. Absolutely not.
Hmm.
But if I was, because that at that point I was pretty happy with. Not that I was happy with who I was, but I was pretty. I knew that I knew that I was gay, but I knew that I wasn't like those people. Like I didn't need to present myself in that way to be gay, if that makes sense. But that was a little bit after that. It took me like 3 years after high school to come out, or 2 years after high school. Um, I'm trying to remember. This is high school, college. I would say if I, what I will say, and to what you were saying, if I was age like 10 right now, I think I would fall into the trend of thinking that I was trans, like actually thinking I was transgender. Because when I was 10, if this was happening back in the 90s, not now, because there's a lot of things that are different, but when I was 10, I didn't realize that you could be a woman that likes women. I thought you had to be a guy to be able to like women. And I already didn't like my body. I was always hanging out with the boys, probably because I was gay. Not that all lesbians have to do that, but a lot of them do. And I think just the simple fact that I loved hanging out with boys, I liked playing sports, I didn't like my body, and I liked women would have made me think that I was transgender back then.
Yeah.
For sure, I would have fallen into it. For sure. Which is, and I'm a very strong-minded person, which makes me worry more for these types of kids. Yeah.
I see a lot of on YouTube, you can sort of go down a rabbit hole of videos of mostly women who
Yep.
detransition to
None of them.
who, yeah, and I think it's probably more women than men,
It
but like,
is. Yes, statistically, yeah.
yeah, biological women
For
who,
a number of reasons, and I'm sure that you can think of some of them. Yeah,
yeah,
it's actually way more common than men, which is interesting because if you look at statistics before the last 10 years or so, just going on statistics alone, people that actually experience gender dysphoria are more likely to be male, not more likely to be female. So why is this influx of young women
yeah,
suddenly claiming that they're trans happening? Well, sexual trauma likely, mental illness. Young women are more likely to experience mental illness or have body dysmorphia than men. And I think a lot of those things are being, and sexual trauma, also PTSD, all these things. Young women are also more likely to get sexually abused and raped instead of men. I think all those things are being confused for gender dysphoria. And I also think it's just the cool thing to do now to be trans. So I think it's a mix of everything. And young girls are more likely to fall into that. I'm going to do it because it's a cool trap.
right.
It's just how it is. It's always been like that.
I think it's also a lot of young lesbians, like you were saying.
It's a lot of
Yeah,
young lesbians that are claiming to be, I think, thinking that they're trans men that would have been like butch women before.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
And it's a wonder why I talk about this. It's like it's most because I hate trans people. Actually, it's because a lot of these people that are being subject to this are not trans and are actually just like cis women that are same sex attracted and
Yeah,
either ashamed of it or you know. Sarah and I
and
have this conversation all the time.
yeah.
We talk about it. Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind bearing with me, I'm just going to put a couple of these up on the screen.
Oh,
Thank
go
you
ahead.
guys. Matt Deckard says, oh, it's not as important as the second super chat. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Matt. And what else? I'm not used to scrolling through here for these. This is the first time we've had them. I think there was one from Little Ragamuffin. Oh, yeah. Yay for super chats and freedom. Also have one more thing to say. This show is so gay.
Yeah. It's
What do
half
you,
gay.
it's half
Are
gay.
you
What do
bi?
you,
You're straight, right?
me? I'm straight.
Yeah, yeah. So it's half gay.
It's only half gay.
Cut down the
It's,
middle.
yeah.
Right here.
What do you think about the reaction to? I'll just talk about something topical for a moment.
Yeah.
But the reaction to what they're calling in Florida the "Don't Say Gay" bill.
I've read the bill, and I think the bill's fine. I don't think, first of all, the bill doesn't even mention the word gay. That's the truth. I read it. It's like 6 pages long. And I live in Florida. I'm not worried about this. What the bill is attempting to do, hopefully it will, is put the control of what kids are learning to put the control back in the hands of parents. They don't want their kids being taught about sexual orientation and gender identity and all this bullshit at the ages, what is it? I think kindergarten through grade 3. That's super young. When I was in grade 3, I still didn't really understand. I didn't know that I was gay. I didn't know until technically grade 4. And even then, I was just like, I don't really know what this means. But I know I'm different. Because you have to remember, you're not, sexual orientation is exactly that. It's right. Sexual orientation. I didn't think about sex until I was like 13. And it wasn't even like, oh, I want to bang that girl. It was like, oh, that's what sex is kind of thing. Oh, like you don't start craving that kind of stuff until you hit puberty. So why are we teaching young kids about sexual orientation? Romantic orientation is a different story. That, I think, when you're very young, you know that you're different. Because I knew, like, watching Disney movies, I would picture myself as the prince trying to rescue the princess. I didn't, not that I wanted to be a boy,
Mm-hmm.
but I wanted to be romantic to a woman, if that made sense. And that was the way that I guess, saw that happening in my mind. Like, oh, Prince Eric, or even though that'd be weird dating somebody named Arielle. But like the idea, right? Of
Yeah.
rescuing a princess. So I didn't want to be rescued, at least by a boy, and that's the only story that they were
Mm-hmm.
showing. So I was like, well, maybe I could picture myself as the boy. That way I could rescue the girl, right? Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
just the way I experienced it, and the way most of my friends experienced it as well, through like those types of Disney movies and scenes and such.
Yeah. So you bill yourself as the queen of controversial conversations. I'm wondering, what is your most controversial opinion? What's the,
Opinion?
yeah, what's the thing that's gotten you into hot water?
I don't know. I think the thing is, I don't think any of my opinions are actually controversial. I just say that as a joke, and it's just because it's good play on words. The queen of controversy. But I say the queen of controversial conversations because it just, I don't know.
It's
But
good alliteration.
yeah, it's
Pl-
good. That's the point. That's what I tried to do. I think possibly from, like, if we're going by what the left people on the far left say, I think my most controversial opinion would be like the non-binary stuff,
Mhm.
and how I feel about the fact that all these kids are not lying, but they're being indoctrinated into thinking that there's something that they're not.
Mhm.
I think I think most people, at least sane people, can understand where I stand on trans issues, but I think this whole non-binary thing and this queer stuff, um, I think people can get on my case about it, and I can understand where they're coming from in a way, because from their perspective, they're kind of like, these kids just want to belong to something, just let them be whatever the hell they want. And I'm like, yeah, I can understand that frame of mind, but I still don't think that this is the way to do that, because I
Mhm.
don't think that they're being what they are. I think it's the opposite. I think that they're being something that they're not, because they want to be a part of something bigger,
Mhm.
which is healthy and normal to know that you're a part of something bigger, that you're not alone. But I also think that it's a lack of, believe it or not, I think it's a lack of religion, and I'm not religious. And I say that as a spiritual person. I think of think of I think that the lack of religion is bringing kids to need something to, pun intended, look up to,
Yeah.
right? And this is what they're like. I say it all the time. Instead of the word of God, I say the word of woke. Like,
Mhm.
wokeness is the new religion. It really is.
Yeah.
It follows all the technical. It follows a lot of the technical, um, not points, but I guess things that
Th-
you would have to adhere to for it to
yeah.
be considered to be considered a religious person, so to speak.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
ritual.
Right. There's ritual. You have to say certain things, use
Yeah, like
certain
liturgy.
words, repeat after me, whatever. What did you say? The what?
I just learned that word this past year, liturgy. It's like the spoken
Liturgy.
word that where you repeat it. It's a part of religious practice, and they
Yeah.
do that, like you're saying.
Yep.
Let's say my name, and then
Yeah.
we
Black
also
Lives
there's
Matter. Repeat after us. Black Lives Matter.
yeah.
Repeat after us. Trans women are women. Repeat after us. Whatever.
Hmm.
No human is illegal. But it's like, okay, yeah. At surface value, all those things are good. Like, they all kind of like they all want to be good things, but it's not. It's such a these are such deep issues that you can't paint any of these issues with a broad stroke. It's just not how it works.
Hmm.
But that's how you get people on board with these things, because it's so broad. Oh yeah, I get a lot. A lot. Black lives do matter, of course. Then when you get into it, you're like, oh shit, this organization's terrible.
Yeah.
But you don't know. Like, you just see the broad stroke. Oh yeah, the words Black Lives Matter. 3 words, simple. Great ad campaign.
Yeah.
Great ad campaign. Oh yeah, terrible
Why do
organization.
why do you think woke ideology was able to take such? Because I really view it in the past couple of years as when it went mainstream. When I was in it, most of the time I was in it, it wasn't popular until
Same.
it kind of
Same.
got, yeah, it got popular, and right around the time you're talking about, like around 2015,
Yeah.
16, 17, it started to come into prominence. And
Mhm.
do you think it's primarily, sometimes I think about it in terms of it's a philosophy issue or an idea issue, a problem with ideas and ideology. But other times I think of it as a psychology issue and a problem with people's psyche. We have a mental health crisis, I think, in this country. Is it primarily about fixing people's psychology, or is it just about giving them better ideas?
I think it's both, and I also want to add to that and say I also think that it's, and I think I've spoken about this publicly. I think it's the idea of this, not my generation, but the one right after me. It's the participation trophy generation. They want everything for free. They expect everything. They only want the best. They expect nothing less without having to do anything. So they're pro socialism and communism, even though they don't really know what that is, right? Because
Hmm.
I don't know, they're studying gender studies in school besides instead of government, so they don't even
Yeah.
know what's right. I think I do think it's a lack of education, and I think, yeah, I would say it's those three things. I think that's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah.
I think to change that, I think not that there needs to be a restructuring, but I think we need to bring back. Do you ever see the hashtag on Twitter, bring back bullying? I'm joking about this. I don't think we should actually bully people again, but I think we do need to be more stern with these people,
Yeah.
because when you don't get bullied, you don't get humbled. And these kids are not humble.
Yeah.
They don't have an ounce of humble in their being. So, and that worries me, right? They've never been smacked, right?
Yeah.
The generation, my generation, my dad would slap me if I was bad. Do I think that's a whole other conversation if I think that's
Yeah.
okay? But I think I think these kids need to be humbled, and instead they're being praised for shitting brown.
Yeah. Well, even figuratively, they've never been smacked.
No, no, I really,
Like,
so yeah.
there's,
I think that's the major problem, to be honest. I think that, and then the lack of a higher purpose is a big
yeah.
part of this. Yeah, because I think everybody naturally wants to believe that there's something bigger than just whatever this is.
Hmm.
Uh, some people get that from religion. Some people get that from having kids. And this new generation kind of isn't doing either of those things. So I
Yeah.
think they're lacking, not substance, but lacking a purpose, maybe, or like knowing what their
Purpose.
purpose is. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's I've heard Jordan Peterson talk a lot about a crisis of meaning,
Yes.
and I agree
Yeah.
with you.
He says it perfectly. I agree with
Hmm.
him.
Yeah.
And he's not religious. I don't think he's like me, right?
Most
Well,
recently, I've heard him, well, he's always said he behaves as if he believes God exists.
mm-hmm.
And I think he
Like
started to,
morality wise, yeah.
yeah, and I think
Of
he
course.
started to move a little further in that direction recently, just contemplating questions of God. And, that when we got to talk just a little bit outside of the Better Discourse conference, that's
Mm-hmm.
something I'm really interested in the past couple of years as well. And I think that's part of it is because when I left the social justice left, it created a vacuum for me that I
Well,
didn't realize it
it
had
created
been
a
fulfilling.
hole. I
Yes,
created a hole,
a
and you were
hole.
like, well, what do I do now? Like,
Yeah.
what am I worth? What's my like, what am I doing here? What do I have to fight for?
At first, I tried to put alcohol in that hole, and it did not work.
Yeah, that's not, that'll just make the hole deeper. That'll
Yes.
just make the hole deeper. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's true. I think the more I think about it, it's like I think people are trying to find something, like you said, to look up to, and
Right.
in that position, they're putting things that just
Literally, right? They have
yeah,
pillars. They
yeah,
have a pyramid of oppression, right? You're
yeah.
literally, who am I supposed to look up to? Trans women of color. Okay, they're at the
Hmm.
top. Look at it. No.
Yeah. And none of that's sustaining.
Spiritually, we're all the same. We're on different paths. We're all learning different things, but we're all spiritual beings
Yeah.
having a human experience. So
Yeah.
you ain't better than anybody else. Cut it out.
Yeah. Therese says a God-sized hole, like we say. Yeah.
Yeah, a
Um,
God-sized hole. Interesting. Yeah.
So I don't want to keep you too long. I'm trying to keep these to an hour. But if you wanted to leave people with, just tell them again where they can find you if they want to see more of your videos. And maybe um, if there's any younger people watching who are maybe questioning some of like social justice ideology or they're afraid they're the only ones having these questions, the only one who thinks differently, like what would you say to them?
I would say now is the time for you, to be honest, especially if you're a minority. We need your voice. And if you start speaking up, people are going to listen to you right now. I think there's a lot of us that paved the way. And instead of a dirt road, it's not cement yet, but it's we're paving it, right? We're slowly. And I think the more people we have to pave it, the easier the road's going to get for us. I think now is the time for these people to start speaking up.
Yeah, be
That
a
were afraid
rebel.
before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the people who are speaking up for the last few years took the brunt of it. Yeah.
Yeah, right on. And people
Mhm.
can find you online.
YouTube.com/Arielle, Arielle.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight, and I hope I get to see you in person again soon. Thank
Soon,
you.
hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging out in the chat, guys. Again, just the announcement, this is a new channel, so if it's your first time here, hit subscribe. And we do now have a locals and a subscribe star and Patreon set up if you want to support the show, or you can just share this interview with people who you think would like it, especially people on the left. Thank you so
All
much. Take care.
right, bye. Thank you, guys.